In the center of a wide, quiet room stood a black piano that no one was allowed to love. It shone in the afternoon sun like a monument, beautiful, polished, and silent. To the man who owned it, that silence was the sound of his single greatest regret. He had wanted, when he was young, to be a pianist. He had heard music in ordinary things, in rain on a windowsill, in the rhythm of a train pulling out of a station. But the world around him spoke louder than the music. It spoke of stability, of sensible choices, of a life that did not depend on applause. So he folded his hands, and he chose numbers instead of notes. He became wealthy. He became respected. And every time he passed the black piano in the corner of his home, he felt the small, cold ache of a door he had once closed on himself. So he made a promise. The mistake would not happen again. Not in the next life that had been given to him to shape. His son was 6 years old the first time he was lifted onto the bench. At first, the boy thought it was a game. His feet did not yet reach the pedals, and the keys felt like a long row of friendly white teeth. But the years turned, and slowly the music stopped being play. It became duty. It became the law of the house. Practice every day, tired or not, rain or not, homework or not, and under all of it, like a second heartbeat, the metronome, tick, 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 patient, merciless. The boy grew, and his hands grew clever. He won the small competitions of their town. He collected applause the way other children collect stones and string. And the father stood at the back of every hall, swelling with a pride so large that he never once thought to look closely at his son's face. If he had looked, he would have seen it. When the boy bowed to the clapping crowd, there was no light in his eyes. There was only a quiet relief, the relief of a thing being over. Then came a rainy Thursday. The man left his office early, for no reason he could have named. The house was perfectly still when he stepped inside. He hung his coat without a sound and walked toward the living room, where the door stood slightly open. His son was at the piano. On the stand before him sat the difficult Beethoven sonata he had been preparing for months, but he was not playing it. He sat with his shoulders dropped, staring down at the black and white keys as though they were the bars of a cage he had been born inside. Then slowly the boy raised his hands, and he played something that was in no book. It was simple. It was unbearably sad. The notes came broken and uncertain, full of long hesitations, as if the boy were not performing music at all, but confessing something he had no other words for. The father, hidden in the doorway, felt the hair rise along his arms. This was not technique. This was the pure, unfiltered shape of his child's heart, and it was grieving. The boy struck the keys harder. The melody turned wild, full of refusal, full of helplessness. His thin shoulders began to shake. And then he stopped, all at once, and buried his face in his hands, and wept without a single sound, the tears falling straight onto the polished wood. It lasted only a moment. Then the boy drew a deep, trembling breath. He wiped his eyes on the sleeve of his sweater and straightened his spine. The mask of perfect calm returned to his face. He reached over and switched on the metronome. Tick, tick. He lifted his hands and he played the Beethoven sonata, fast, flawless, exact. And completely without a soul. The father felt as though a hand had reached into his chest. In a single second, he understood what he had truly built. The piano had never been a gift to his child. It was a machine in which he had been trying to turn back time, to resurrect his own dead youth, note by note. He had been stealing his son's childhood to feed a hunger that belonged only to himself. He stepped into the room. The sound of his footsteps made the boy stop instantly. The child went rigid, like a soldier caught at fault, waiting to be scolded for the practice he had let slip. The man said nothing. He crossed the room. He passed his son's frightened eyes. And gently, but with a terrible finality, he lowered the heavy lid over the keys. The latch closed with a soft, hollow click. He switched off the metronome. The sudden silence in the room was enormous. He rested his hands on his son's shoulders. "You always hated this thing, didn't you?" he asked softly. The boy hesitated. He pressed his lips together, and then, with fear still in his eyes, he gave a small nod. The man felt his own tears rising. "Why did you never tell me?" "Because I wanted you to be proud of me," the boy answered. his voice breaking apart. The father pulled him close and held him with all his strength. "I am proud of you," he said. "I always have been. And for that to be true, you never have to play another note." The next day after school, the boy did not sit down to the music. Instead, he went to the wardrobe and pulled out an old, dust-covered sketchbook, the one he had always hidden from his father. The man lowered himself into the armchair beside him and watched. He watched the hands that had spent years striking keys with mechanical precision now move across the paper with passion and freedom and joy, drawing shapes that belonged to no one but the boy. The black piano stood in its corner, silent and closed. And for the first time in that house, the silence did not hurt anyone. We tell ourselves we are giving our children the best of us. But sometimes what we hand them is only the weight of the life we never lived. A child is not a blank page for finishing our unfinished story. They do not arrive to pay our debts to the past or to heal the disappointments we carried before they were born. They come with their own music already inside them, and the only question that matters is whether we will be quiet enough to hear it. So if there is a closed door in you tonight, some old unlived dream, be gentle with where you set it down. The greatest gift was never the path we wished we had taken. It was the freedom to let them find their own. Some silences are not empty. Some silences are mercy.